The castle corridors are quieter than usual tonight. It's well past curfew, and the torches along the stone walls have begun to sputter into embers, casting long shadows that stretch and sway like silent sentinels. You should be in bed. Everyone should. But there was something about that faint glow you saw through the window of the common room. Something impossible to ignore. It wasn't a lantern. It wasn't a candle. It flickered too strangely for that. It drifted across the edge of the forbidden forest in an almost teasing way, bobbing like it wanted to be followed. You grab your wand, whisper a soft lumos under your breath, and quietly slip through the portrait hole or down the steps of your dormitory, depending on where you come from. Either way, the castle seems to breathe differently at night. The staircases groan a little louder. The suits of armor seem more alert. Even the portraits peer down at you with narrowed, suspicious eyes. But none of them call out. You know the shortcuts. You've memorized which floorboards creak and which corners Peeves tends to favor after dark. You don't need the Marauder's map. You've walked this route in your head 100 times before ever setting foot in it. By the time you slip past the last courtyard arch, the castle behind you looms like a silent guardian. You turn back once, half expecting to see a teacher's silhouette. But there's nothing. Just windows glowing faintly in the distance and the low hum of night insects. The moment your boots meet the grass, something shifts. The very air feels different, heavier, cooler, more alive. The forbidden forest waits at the edge of the grounds, a dark sprawl of twisted trunks and tangled canopy that blocks out the moonlight. But there it is, the light. It's still there, flickering, drifting just past the first line of trees. You hesitate. Everyone knows you're not supposed to go into the forest alone, not even during the day. But the glow feels personal now, like it waited for you, like it noticed you watching. So you step past the last stone marker, crossing the line that separates Hogwarts from everything the professors warn about. The ground becomes softer, mossier, muffling your footsteps. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves fills your lungs. And still, the light drifts ahead, always just far enough to stay out of reach, always pausing just long enough to make sure you're still coming. The trees grow denser within minutes. Branches curl overhead like rib bones, closing off the sky. Your wand light fights to stay steady, but every now and then it flickers, sputtering as if it too is nervous. That's when you realize you can no longer hear the castle. No more distant hum of torches. No hoot of owls. No rustle of other students sneaking out for midnight adventures. Just the sound of your own breath and the crunch of leaves underfoot. You glance around. The forest looks the same in every direction now. Every trunk twists the same way. Every path is swallowed by undergrowth. The light has led you deep enough that turning back would be a guess, not a plan. Then the light stops. It hovers in place like a firefly suspended on invisible strings. You approach slowly, careful not to disturb it, though you're not sure why. And when you're close enough to touch it, it disappears. Not fades, not dims, just vanishes. Your heart drops. The space where the light had been now seems darker than the rest of the forest. You take a step forward, but a thick root catches your foot, and you stumble to your knees, hands sinking into damp moss and cold earth. That's when you hear it. A rustle, not yours, from the trees ahead. Then another, off to the left. You rise slowly, lifting your wand higher. Luma. The light returns, but it feels weaker now, like it's being swallowed by something bigger than shadow. The air is colder, too. Your breath mists, as if the temperature has dropped 10 degrees in a blink. You turn in a slow circle. The forest has grown unfamiliar. You're sure you hadn't come in this far. You try retracing your steps, but every tree looks like the last. You pass one with a deep gouge in the bark, then pass it again and again. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hoots, a relief. Maybe. Until something else answers it. Not another owl. A low, throaty growl. Not close, but not far enough. You grip your wand tighter. Your voice comes out quieter than you mean it to. Lumos Maxima. The burst of light pushes back the dark for just a moment. And in that moment, you think you see something move, just past the edge of your vision. Tall, slender, wrong. You start walking faster now, not sure where you're going, but certain you can't stay still. The trees feel closer, the roots more tangled. Your mind spins. Why did you follow the light? Why tonight? And then, just as suddenly as it vanished, the light reappears. Only now, it's right in front of you, hanging low, almost at eye level. It pulses once, as if it's breathing. Something about it feels different, not inviting, not curious, warning. You take a step back, but a branch snaps behind you, and your legs respond before your mind does. You run. Branches whip against your robes. Twigs snag at your sleeves. You don't care. You keep running until you stumble into a clearing you don't recognize. And there, on the other side of the glade, you see it. A shadow with wings. A figure not quite human. Watching. It doesn't move. Neither do you. You grip your wand tighter and wait for something, anything. But the figure turns slowly and disappears into the trees. You're alone again. The forest is silent. The light is gone. And you're officially, completely lost. Your footsteps slow, whether out of caution or exhaustion. You're not sure. The clearing lies still behind you, swallowed once more by brambles and shadow. That strange figure, the one with wings, or what looked like wings, is gone, like it had never been there to begin with. You should be relieved, but instead, a deeper silence sets in. You wait, hoping for something, an owl call, the chirp of a cricket, even the rustle of branches above. But there is nothing. No sounds, not even your own. The breath in your lungs, the soft thud of your heartbeat, they should echo in this stillness, but they don't. It's as if the air itself refuses to carry sound anymore. As if the forest has decided to hush you. You whisper, Lumos, again, even though the light is already shining at the tip of your wand. The spell has become a comfort more than a command now. A way to convince yourself that you're still in control, that you still have a voice. The light pulses gently, casting its dim glow onto the roots at your feet and the moss-covered trunks around you. But the shadows here are thick, too thick, and the light seems afraid to reach very far. You take another step forward, and again, your boots make no noise, not even the usual crunch of leaves. You glance down. The forest floor is soft, covered in an oddly smooth layer of moss. Too smooth, almost like a blanket tucked over the real ground beneath. Everything feels muffled. You look up, hoping to catch a glimpse of the moon through the canopy. But the trees above are so tightly packed, not even the faintest starlight filters through. You try to remember which direction you came from, but the forest behind you looks no different from what lies ahead. There are no landmarks, no bent twigs, no footprints, no broken branches to mark your passage. Nothing but trees and darkness. Still, you walk. It feels wrong to stand still here. Like standing still might give the forest permission to close around you. And so, you move. Slowly, carefully. Each step, a quiet challenge to the silence. Time moves strangely now. You can't tell how long you've been walking. Minutes, hours, maybe more. It's as if you've stepped into a place where the rules are different, where the sun and moon don't matter, and clocks forget how to count. Your wand light flickers again. You freeze. There, in the distance, something moves, a ripple in the darkness, like a shadow shifting behind a tree. But when you squint, there's nothing there, just the familiar shape of twisted bark and overgrown vines. You tell yourself it was nothing, the light playing tricks, your mind playing tricks. But you know that's not quite true. You start walking again, but now your path becomes stranger. The trees begin to lean, not all in one direction, but in different ways. Some bend toward you, some away, some twist unnaturally, as if recoiling from the very light you carry. Their roots form strange patterns beneath your feet. Circles, spirals, lines that seem deliberate. You try to ignore it, but the silence presses in harder now. It becomes a physical thing, a weight on your shoulders. Your thoughts start to grow louder in its absence. Every doubt, every fear, every half-forgotten memory begins to rise to the surface. The forest isn't just swallowing sound. It's making room for something else. You stop at a fork in the path. If it can even be called that. Just two gaps in the trees, neither more welcoming than the other. You try to listen for some hint, some cue. But of course there's nothing. Just that smothering, unnatural quiet. And then you feel it, not hear it. Just feel it. A tremor in the air, like something massive breathing. Not far, not near, but present, watching. Your wand trembles slightly in your grip. You choose the left path. As you press forward, the forest shifts again. The trees grow wider apart, and in the distance, you see something unusual. Stones. Tall, narrow ones standing upright in the earth, like silent sentinels. You approach slowly. The air colder here than before. As you get closer, you notice markings etched deep into the rock. Runes, ancient, carved with a precision that suggests they weren't meant for decoration. They radiate something, not heat, not light, but a kind of awareness. You step between them, careful not to touch. The silence here is worse than before. Total. Even your thoughts seem muffled. And then a low tsa begins to rise. Not from the air, but from the stones themselves. You don't hear it, not with your ears. It vibrates in your bones, a distant frequency that makes your vision pulse at the edges. The runes glow faintly, just for a second. You step back, and the hum fades. Your head throbs lightly as you leave the stone circle behind, your wand light still flickering as if uncertain of its own strength. Then, something new. An odor. Faint, sweet, and cloying. You follow it. Not because you want to, but because there's nowhere else to go. The scent leads you into another clearing. This one filled with strange, black flowers blooming out of the mossy floor. Their petals drink in the light, absorbing it instead of reflecting. They sway gently, as though they're aware of your presence. You kneel beside one, curiosity overriding caution. Its center glistens with dew, or maybe something else. You raise your wand, trying to get a better look, but your light dims the moment it touches the petals. You stand quickly. Something about them feels wrong. You back away slowly, eyes still on the flowers. And when you turn to leave, you see something etched in the trunk of a nearby tree. A name. Your name. Not freshly carved, aged, worn, like it's been there for years. You reach out with your hand, hovering just above the bark. But before you can touch it, a sound breaks through the silence. A snap, a single twig, broken just behind you. Your heart jumps. You whirl around, wand raised. But there's nothing. Just trees. And the silence again. But now you know you're not alone. And for the first time since entering the forest, the silence doesn't feel empty. It feels patient. You stay frozen for several heartbeats, eyes locked on the spot where the twig snapped. The silence returns, but now it feels thinner, not as absolute, as if something stirred beneath it and slipped just out of view. You don't move. Your ears strain against the stillness, hoping to catch even the softest footfall, the flutter of a wing, the scrape of claws on bark. Nothing comes. Eventually, you breathe again, though it's shallow and quick. Your legs ache from holding still, and your wand hand is trembling. You don't know how long you've been here. The forest keeps time differently. Or maybe it doesn't keep it at all. You begin walking again, slowly, deliberately, retracing your steps away from the black flowers and the tree with your name. You don't know where you're going, only that staying still feels more dangerous than moving forward. Your wand light flickers as you walk, casting long, sharp-edged shadows on the trees. They dance in strange ways, never quite matching the direction of your movement. Every time you glance over your shoulder, something seems slightly different. A tree that wasn't crooked before, a root that wasn't raised, a stone that wasn't there. It's not just shadows that twist. It's everything. The forest seems to bend around you, not overtly, not all at once, but gradually, like a slow, tightening coil. The path ahead curves to the left, then to the right, then to the left again. But when you try to look back, you realize there is no straight line behind you, only loops and sharp turns that lead to more trees, more darkness, more of the same. You lift your wand higher, trying to strengthen the light. Lumos Maxima, you whisper again. The wand flares for a moment, a white-hot burst that pushes the shadows back, but only briefly. The forest recoils at the brightness, branches above you creaking as if in protest. Then the light dims again, shrinking down to its usual glow. You feel like you've offended something. Still, you press on. The path, or what seems like a path, narrows. The trees growing closer together until they begin to lean in above your head, forming a tunnel of bark and twisted limbs. Your light shines ahead, but the shadows stretch unnaturally long behind you, and they move, not in rhythm with your steps, but out of sync. One lags, one jumps ahead, one flickers just a second too long. You stop suddenly. Your shadow has stopped too. But it isn't shaped like you anymore. It stands taller, leaner. Its arms hang too low, and its head is cocked slightly to one side, like it's listening to something you can't hear. You blink hard and raise your wand to look down, but your own shadow snaps back into place, perfectly normal. The trick of the light, you tell yourself. Just the forest playing games, just your mind caught between fear and fatigue. But you can't deny what you saw. You move faster now, breathing heavier, trying not to look at the shadows anymore, trying not to look at the shapes they make when the trees sway. 1 second, they're just trees, just leaves, just the forest. And then, in the corner of your eye, they look like arms, like cloaks, like creatures crouching just out of reach. You glance up, hoping for a break in the canopy. But the leaves are layered thick above your head, branches twisted like fingers clenched in fists. They block everything: moonlight, starlight, the sky itself. The forest doesn't want you to remember that there's a world outside of it. You begin muttering to yourself, not spells, not anything coherent, just words, sound, anything to fill the void the forest has left behind. Anything to make you feel like your voice still exists. Your wand light flickers again. Once, twice, then steadies. You exhale in relief, but the air feels colder now, and the shadows closer. Then, something moves just outside your light's reach. You freeze. This time, you don't blink. You keep your eyes fixed on it. A shape, humanoid, not quite touching the ground. Floating? No. Hovering. Maybe. Watching. You take a cautious step forward, and the figure vanishes. No sound. No motion. Just gone. You shine your light around the base of the trees, but there's no sign anyone had been there. No footprints, no broken branches, no disturbance at all. But the shadows ripple. You don't notice it right away, but they start to move differently. Instead of stretching away from your wand light like normal shadows, some now seem to bend toward it, as if drawn to the warmth, or to you. You spin in a slow circle, watching how they behave. They twist, shift, coil, almost like they're reacting to your presence, or like they're trying to mimic it. One shadow rises up the side of a tree like smoke, then vanishes into the leaves above. You step back. Your heel catches on a root, and you stumble slightly, catching yourself with a hand on the nearest trunk. The bark is warm. Not just warm, pulsing, faintly, like it has a heartbeat. You pull your hand away, breath caught in your throat. You step away from the tree and aim your wand at its base. Nothing unusual, just roots and moss and the tangle of vines you've come to expect from this place. But then something behind you whispers your name. It's not loud. It's not angry. It's soft, curious. You spin around, wand raised. But there's no one there, just shadows. They twitch at your light, dance for a moment, then still. Your heart pounds as you take a shaky step backward, then another. You don't know where you're going anymore. You just want to leave this particular patch of forest behind. You follow what seems to be a trail, though you can't be sure if it's new or if you've walked it before. It feels different. Or maybe you're different. You're not sure anymore. The shadows still move as you walk, like they've learned your rhythm. They keep time with your steps now. A twisted echo, a mockery And then, just ahead, you see something between the trees. Light. Not wand light. Not the cold blue glow of a spell, but soft, golden light. Flickering. Firelight. Hope stirs. Your pace quickens. But even as you approach it, you know the forest has no reason to be kind. Still, you push forward, toward the light, toward whatever's waiting, because the shadows behind you are growing longer, and they no longer look like yours. You don't look back, not now. The firelight ahead is the only thing anchoring you to movement, to purpose. You weave between gnarled trunks and tangled roots, dodging low-hanging branches that seem to reach for you as you pass. The shadows press in tighter, clinging to the edges of your wand light like oil. But still, that golden glow dances in the distance, unwavering. It flickers between the trees like a lantern swaying gently in the wind. But there is no wind. The air is too still, too dense, and the silence has returned to its unnatural depth. No sounds of night creatures, no whispers, not even your footsteps, just the rhythm of your breath and the quiet hum of fear under your ribs. You reach the clearing where the light originates and stop short. There's no fire, no lantern, just a patch of moss-covered earth, illuminated as though by invisible flames. The light here is real. You can see the way it falls across the trees, the faint shimmer of dust it casts on the leaves, but there is no source. Nothing burns. Nothing glows. You circle it slowly, wand raised, heart pounding. The moment you step into the lit circle, a strange sensation floods your chest. Warmth. Yes, but also something else. Something like nostalgia, a soft ache, as though the forest is offering you a memory, or perhaps luring you with one. And then the light dims, not sharply, not all at once. It fades like a sunset, gradual, inevitable, and absolute. You whip around. Darkness again. You raise your wand, shouting Lumos Maxima with more force than before. The burst of light explodes from your wand tip, illuminating the clearing. And for one fraction of a second, you swear there's a figure standing just behind a tree, tall, still, watching. But when the light shrinks back to a manageable glow, the figure is gone. You decide then, enough. It's time to go back. You turn around, tracing your way through the trees, back the way you came. Or so you think. You walk in that direction for several minutes before stopping. The trees look unfamiliar. You spin slowly. The twisting roots underfoot, the bowed branches, the uneven patches of moss. They don't match your memory. Still, you keep walking. You tell yourself the path is just hidden, that the forest shifted behind you. That's what it does, right? The forbidden forest isn't known for playing fair, but after a while, you find yourself standing before a tree with deep claw marks raked into its trunk. You've seen it before, and not just in passing. You remember it clearly. Remember running your fingers along the gouges, wondering what creature had made them. You've walked in a circle. A cold sweat breaks across your skin. Your light flickers. You take a deep breath and try again, moving with purpose this time, carving a new path. You break branches as you go. Mark trees with your wand. You leave little clues, small piles of rocks, scuffs in the earth, patterns in the moss. 20 minutes later, you're back at the same tree. The claw marks are deeper now, or maybe your eyes are playing tricks on you. No, not tricks. You're being turned around. The forest is folding behind you, bending space like paper, trapping you in loops. You try to rationalize it. Maybe you lost your sense of direction. Maybe you veered left when you meant to go right. But the growing knot in your chest says otherwise. This place is alive. It knows you're trying to leave, and it won't let you. You stop. You sit on a fallen log, or what you hope is a log, and try to calm your breathing. The quiet presses against your ears, your temples, your spine. You grip your wand so tightly, your knuckles ache. You look around. Nothing moves. But the air has grown thicker, damper. Each inhale is heavy. You run your hand through your hair, damp with sweat, and stare up through the trees. Still no moon. Still no stars. You try to cast a directional spell, anything to give you a sense of bearing. You murmur, "Point me." But your wand spins uselessly in your hand, unable to decide which way is north. It turns left, then right, then slowly curls downward, pointing at the earth. You mutter a curse under your breath, something unmagical but sharp, and stand again. And then you see it, a trail, narrow, barely noticeable, just a break in the undergrowth, flanked by ferns and thick ivy. It wasn't there before. You would have seen it. You're sure of it. But it stretches ahead, inviting, promising. you hesitate. You know the forest. You know it shouldn't be trusted. But standing still is worse. So you walk. The trail winds tightly, always forward, never straight. It curls like a serpent through dense thickets and low archways of bark. Occasionally, you spot more claw marks, different ones, smaller, scattered. Sometimes there are footprints, but only for a few feet before vanishing completely. As you walk, you glance over your shoulder now and then, and that's when it becomes clear. There's nothing behind you. No trail, no scuffed earth, no broken twigs, no crushed ferns where your boots stepped just seconds ago. You crouch and run your fingers over the moss behind you. It's untouched, pristine, as though you never passed this way. The trail is erasing itself. The forest is not just twisting ahead of you. It's consuming the path behind you. You feel dizzy suddenly, like you've been walking in a dream. You kneel down, trying to steady yourself, to breathe. That's when you see it. A single object on the ground, half buried in the moss. A feather, long, black, gleaming. It doesn't belong to any creature you recognize. Not an owl, not a crow. Its surface shimmers faintly with green and purple, like an oil slick under sunlight. You reach for it, and the moment your fingers brush its edge, the silence breaks. A low sound, far away, but growing. Not footsteps, not voices. A groan, like trees shifting, like the forest stretching its spine. You pocket the feather without thinking and stand. Your light wavers, then steadies. You tighten your grip on your wand and keep moving, because now you understand. The forest isn't just trying to confuse you. It's trying to keep you, and the path behind you no longer exists. You don't know how long you've been walking, only that each step feels more uncertain than the last, as if the forest is slowly unspooling your sense of direction and quietly replacing it with something else, something older, stranger, harder to understand. The path winds without reason, narrowing one moment into tunnels of bark and root, then opening into uneven glades where moonlight filters down in pale, watery slivers that do nothing to warm the air or ease the quiet dread building just beneath your skin. The feather you found earlier still rests in your pocket, heavier now, or perhaps not heavier in weight, but in meaning, in the implication that something with wings, large wings, had been here before you, or is still here now. and you've begun to wonder whether it left the feather for you to find, or if it dropped it in a hurry, retreating into the trees just as you entered its domain. The forest behind you no longer exists in any way that you can trace, the way erased with the same care a painter wipes clean a canvas. No broken twigs, no scuff marks in the maw, no trail of snapped branches or boot prints, as if your passage has been edited out, scrubbed away by the forest itself, and you've begun to feel the full weight of that realization, that you are entirely, wholly, and deliberately alone. And then comes the feeling, not a sound, not a movement, but a sensation, that old instinct that whispers of unseen eyes, of something above or behind or beside you that's just beyond the veil of awareness. And when you stop and glance around, nothing greets you, only trees that look too still, too watchful, and air that has grown strangely heavy in your lungs. You move forward again, this time more slowly, your wand light held high and trembling just slightly. And though your steps are careful and deliberate, that feeling does not fade. Instead, it intensifies, crawls up your spine, and settles in your shoulders like a weight you can't shake off. Until finally, inevitably, you give in and tilt your head back. The canopy above is dense, a tangled weave of branches and leaves so tightly knit they block the stars completely. But between the leaves, between the shifting gaps where the moon should be, you see them, small glints, like pinpricks of reflected light, but unmistakably alive, unmistakably watching. Eyes, dozens of them, not glowing, not wide, not even particularly menacing, just still, quiet, fixed on you with a patience that feels inhuman, like the patience of something that has always been here and expects to always remain. You try to convince yourself they're tricks of the light. Maybe dew catching your wand's glow. Maybe the reflective backs of insects. But then they blink, all at once, in perfect unison, as if answering a question you hadn't asked aloud. And in that moment, your breath hitches, your pulse stutters, and you take a slow, instinctive step back. A few leaves tumble down from the branches above, but no shape descends with them. And when you look again, the eyes are gone, erased with the same silence that consumes your footsteps, as though they were never there, or were only ever meant to be glimpsed, not confronted. But you know better. You walk again, keeping your eyes on the path, or what resembles a path, and try not to check the canopy too often, but every few minutes, when your curiosity gets the better of your fear. You glance upward and see them again. Those same cold, reflective glints appearing and disappearing like stars behind storm clouds. Sometimes clustered together, sometimes scattered, but always there, always higher than they should be, and never making a sound. At some point, you step into a clearing, small, circular, unnaturally symmetrical, and you're grateful for the brief openness, the rare spill of moonlight, though even the moon feels muted here, dulled as if filtered through glass. In the dirt, you see footprints, wide, deep, clustered, and your relief curdles into suspicion when you realize they all face inward, toward the very center of the clearing, where a flat stone slab rises from the moss like a forgotten altar, overgrown but intact, and stained with something you choose not to identify. The eyes are closer now. You feel them before you see them. Some primal sense tingling just beneath the surface of your skin. And when you finally look up again, they are everywhere, filling the canopy in a silent, watchful halo, each one fixed on you without blinking, without judgment, without mercy. You stand there, unmoving, your wand light now useless against the press of their attention, your breath tight in your chest, the air too still, the silence too deep. And even though they do nothing, not a twitch, not a shift, you understand the message. You are being watched, you are being followed, and you are not being hunted. Not yet. No. The forest doesn't need to chase you. It only needs to wait, because eventually it knows you'll go exactly where it wants you to go. And when that moment comes, it will be ready. You step backward, slowly, never turning your back on the clearing, until the altar disappears behind the trees and the glints above are hidden once more behind layers of blackened leaves. But you can still feel them, even when you no longer see them, even when you close your eyes. They are there. They have always been there. And now, they know you're here too. You don't stop walking. Even after the altar is far behind you, and the eerie glow of the watchful eyes has vanished into the canopy. Even after the trees grow less dense and the silence, though still heavy, begins to feel less like a trap and more like a warning. You don't allow yourself to pause. Your legs move as though they've made a quiet pact with your fear, to keep going, to not give the forest time to think. But with every step forward, there's an undeniable shift in the air. The pressure changes, softens somehow. It's not a relief, it's an adjustment. a recalibration, as though the forest, having recognized your fear, now chooses to show you something else, something just as strange, but quieter, slower, more seductive. The ground underfoot changes first, where before the earth was uneven and treacherous, covered in tangled roots and slick moss. Now it's smoother, flatter. Your boots no longer squelch through damp hollows or catch on hidden ridges. The trail eases, leading you forward with a strange gentleness. And then you see it. The darkness ahead of you isn't empty. It's full, thick, with low, undulating growth. At first, it looks like a patch of shadow, like a pool of black water spread across the forest floor, too still to be natural. But as you approach, your wand light picks out the edges. Leaves, petals, stems, flowers, hundreds of them, all black. Their petals are wide and waxy, absorbing the light from your wand rather than reflecting it, drinking it in like sunlight and growing darker for it. Some are open fully, blooming toward the canopy, while others remain curled in themselves, like they're waiting for something. And all around them, the air is filled with a scent that is rich and heavy, floral and sweet, almost cloying, like overripe fruit or sugared perfume left too long in the sun. You step closer, cautiously, careful not to brush against them. The petals don't tremble in the air, don't move with the subtle current you create. They are still, unnaturally so. Their stems are rooted deep into the earth, but they seem to exist above the dirt more than in it, like they were placed here rather than grown. You kneel down beside one, curiosity winning out over fear for a moment. Its center is deep and dark, ringed with delicate filaments that shimmer with a strange iridescence. You hold your wand close to it and watch as the light dims immediately, swallowed by the flower's surface. You pull back, and the light returns to full brightness. You try it again, closer, and again, the light dies near the petals. You don't touch it, not yet. Instead, you examine the clearing more carefully. The flowers are not spread randomly. They're arranged, loosely, but with a pattern you can't quite place. Circles within circles, spirals that connect across the clearing. A few are clustered tightly at the base of trees, while others bloom in careful rows across what looks like an old footpath. Something about it feels deliberate, intelligent. And then you notice the silence again. Not just the absence of bird song or breeze, but the muffled quality of your own movements. Your breath sounds dull. Your heartbeat echoes only inside your chest. Even the crack of a twig beneath your foot seems swallowed before it reaches the air. The flowers are doing this. You feel it. You rise and take a slow step backward. And for the first time, one of the flowers moves. Not a lot, just a subtle twitch of the outermost petal, like it sensed your presence, like it changed its mind. You freeze. The scent in the air grows stronger, thicker. You blink, and for a moment, your vision wavers. The flowers around you blur at the edges, becoming pools of shadow that bleed into the moss. You blink again, and they sharpen, but the scent remains, so strong now, it curls in your nose and sits heavy in your throat. You press your sleeve to your mouth. Try to breathe through the fabric. It helps, a little, but the scent is in the air itself. Not just the flowers, it clings to the fog. It rises with the earth. You scan the clearing again, more frantically now, searching for a way out, a path, a direction that doesn't lead through more blossoms. But the trail behind you has vanished again, overgrown with thick vines and low petals that weren't there when you entered. You're surrounded. You take a step back, and then another, and suddenly your boot catches on something buried beneath the moss. You stumble, arms flailing, and fall to your knees between two clusters of flowers. Your hand brushes the stem of one. Instantly, a jolt travels up your arm. Not pain, not quite, but a sensation like static, like something awake. You yank your hand away and scramble upright, heart hammering. The flower has turned. You didn't know they could move, but now there's no denying it. The one you touched is no longer facing the sky. It faces you. Its petals flared slightly, center tilted, as if watching. You don't wait. You break into a run, pushing through the air that feels thick as syrup, dodging flowers as they begin to twitch and rotate in slow, silent unison, each one turning to face you, responding to your presence like sunflowers to the sun. You don't know where you're going. You don't care. You just need to leave this place. You burst through the final row of black blossoms and stumble into a narrower part of the forest, gasping for breath. The air here colder, cleaner, no longer sweet. You collapse against a tree, clutching your side, chest heaving. behind you. The clearing is still, but you know they're still moving. You can feel it. You reach into your pocket without knowing why. The feather is still there, but now it smells like the flowers. You lean against the rough bark of a tree, trying to catch your breath, your chest rising and falling in quick, shallow waves as the forest around you steadies into silence once more. The air here is cooler, thinner, washed clean of that cloying, sweet perfume that clung to the black flowers. You take a cautious breath, testing it, half afraid the scent will follow. But it doesn't. Here, it smells like pine sap and damp leaves, like stone and rain, real things, familiar things. Your heart is still hammering, but something in the stillness ahead feels different. Not safe, but not hostile. The oppressive weight that had clung to you in the clearing has lightened, as though that patch of forest was a pocket sealed off from the rest of the world. Whatever rules governed that place have not followed you here. You move forward slowly, one hand still gripping your wand, while the other brushes against the nearest trunk, grounding you with its coarse texture. Each step feels uncertain, but also necessary. You no longer walk for the sake of leaving something behind. You walk now because something is waiting ahead. And then, in a break between the trees, you see it. A figure, large, broad-shouldered, with feathers. Your first instinct is to freeze, and you do. Your body locking in place before your mind has time to decide whether the creature ahead is a threat. At first, it looks like some great, winged beast hunched low in the mist. You squint, trying to make out its form through the thin veil of fog that clings to the undergrowth. And then the shape sharpens. It's a hippogriff. You've seen pictures before, illustrations in textbooks, a painting in one of the castle's lesser-used hallways. But nothing compares to seeing one in real life, especially here, especially now. Its eagle-like head is lowered, the hooked beak still and gleaming in the moonlight, and its enormous wings are half folded, rising and falling slightly with each breath. You don't move. The hippogriff hasn't noticed you yet, or if it has, it hasn't decided what to do about you. Its talons curl into the moss-covered earth, claws like iron hooks. The hind legs, more like a horse's, shift gently as the creature adjusts its posture. Its feathers are ash gray, streaked with charcoal, and its eyes are sharp amber, glowing faintly as they scan the forest floor. A single wrong move, and you know what could happen. They're proud, dangerous creatures, fierce when disrespected. You remember the lesson, buried somewhere in your memory from a passing mention in class. Always bow first, slowly. You step into the clearing. The hippogriff lifts its head instantly. Its eyes lock onto yours. The forest, which had regained some sense of natural rhythm, falls silent once more. You feel the weight of its gaze settle on your shoulders like a yoke. You bow. It isn't a half-hearted tilt of your head. You bend at the waist, lowering yourself fully, wand still at your side, your body offering what little trust you can manage in a forest that has given you none. You stay bowed, unsure how long to wait. Muscles tense, bracing for the sound of hoofbeats or the rush of wings. Seconds pass, maybe more. Then there is the sound of movement, but not rushing, not aggressive. You lift your head just enough to see. The hippogriff is bowing. Its head dips low, wings shifting slightly outward in a gesture that is almost ceremonial. Your breath catches in your throat. You rise slowly, carefully, eyes never leaving the creature's face. It takes a step toward you. Its talons make almost no sound on the moss, and the movement is surprisingly graceful for something of its size. It approaches slowly, watching your every reaction. When it draws within arm's reach, it stops. You stay still. Then, gently, so gently, you lift a hand. You let it hover, waiting for the hippogriff to close the final gap. And it does. It leans forward, allowing your fingers to brush against the feathers just beneath its beak. The texture is softer than you expected, warm and dense, like the underlayer of a cloak. The moment hangs, delicate as glass. Then the hippogriff shifts, not away, but to the side. It turns its body, wings stretching wider, and lowers itself just slightly, one massive claw scraping at the ground. An invitation. You hesitate. You've heard of students riding hippogriffs before, but not alone. Not like this. And not in the middle of a haunted forest that has been toying with your sanity since the moment you crossed its threshold. Still, something in you answers. You climb carefully onto its back, clutching tightly to the feathers at its neck. You feel its muscles shift beneath you. The power stored in its frame like a coiled spring. You brace yourself, unsure whether this is an escape or simply another turn in the forest's long, strange path. And then it leaps, for one brief, weightless second. You're suspended in air, no longer touching earth, no longer tethered to the trail that loops and twists and disappears behind you. Then the wings snap open, and you are soaring. The forest spreads below you like a great, dark ocean of trees. And for the first time since you became lost, you can see above the canopy. You catch a glimpse of the moon in full, a wide silver disk high overhead. You see the shimmer of a distant creek, the slope of a distant hill, and below, the flowers, the spirals, the circles etched in bark, so many strange shapes hidden by the trees. The hippogriff doesn't fly far, only a short arc above the treetops, perhaps just enough to let you breathe, to remember what space feels like. Then, with a steady beat of its wings, it begins to descend. You land in a different part of the forest. Quiet, yes, but not as dense. The trees here grow farther apart. The undergrowth is thinner. A trail, real and solid, stretches out before you. The hippogriff crouches again, letting you dismount, and then stands tall, watching you with something that almost resembles recognition. A shared moment, a pact. You bow again, and without a sound, it turns and disappears into the trees. You are alone again, but something has shifted. You're not where you began. You're not where the forest left you. And for the first time, the path ahead feels possible. You stand for a moment longer after the hippogriff disappears into the trees, watching the space where its broad wings vanished behind the trunks. The air feels thinner now, not because it's cold, but because something inside you has let go, just a little. For the first time since stepping foot into the forest, you've seen something powerful and magical that wasn't trying to frighten you, or lure you, or twist your path into something unrecognizable. You still don't know if the hippogriff helped you out of kindness or simply followed instinct, but it doesn't matter. It brought you here, to a part of the forest that feels older, quieter, less like a trap, and more like a waiting room. The trail ahead looks real, touched by wind, dusty in places. You start walking slowly, not with caution this time, but with reverence, as though you've stumbled into a part of the forest that prefers to be entered gently, with patience. The trees here aren't gnarled or warped. They grow tall and straight, their bark smooth, their leaves soft with the whisper of breeze. Moss clings to the trunks. but it feels natural now, not like a veil concealing something worse beneath. You notice it gradually at first, a change in the sounds around you. Wind? Maybe. But no, not quite. It's too rhythmic, too carefully spaced, not rustling, not swaying. It's almost speaking. You pause. The trail ahead leads into a small glade, ringed by a perfect circle of trees. The moment you step into it, the air changes, warmer, quieter. Yet you can still hear that sound, the one that pulled at your attention. A low murmur, like breath across stone. A whisper not meant for ears, but still heavy with intention. You turn slowly and find it. The tree stands at the center of the glade, massive, older than any you've passed. Its bark is silvery, worn smooth in some places by time, cracked in others like dried skin. The roots snake out in all directions, thick as your torso, half submerged into the earth as if clinging to something below. Its trunk leans slightly, but it doesn't seem like a natural tilt. It leans toward you. You take a step closer. The whisper grows clearer. It doesn't grow louder, never loud, but its shape begins to form. Not words, not yet, but tone, meaning, emotion. It's not just sound, it's intention. You take another step, and that's when you see the carvings, names, etched into the bark, hundreds of them, some deep and deliberate, some shallow and fading. You run your fingers across the surface without touching any one mark for too long. The names are old, and you realize with a chill that a few of them are familiar, not personally, but from history, from stories. One name, half erased, stands out. Helena R. You step back. The tree creaks, not from the wind, not from movement, but from within, as though something inside it has stirred. The whisper sharpens. You can almost make it out now, almost separate the sounds into syllables. But there's something else layered beneath it, something deeper. You realize with a sinking feeling that some of the names near the base of the trunk are newer, fresh, still rough at the edges. Someone, some people, have carved into this tree recently. And not all the names are full names. Some are just initials. Some are yours. You blink, your gaze dropping to a patch near the ground where the bark peels away. There, carved lightly, almost as if with hesitation, is your first name. Just your first name. It hadn't been there a second ago. You stagger back again, nearly tripping over a root. The whisper shifts tone. Now, it sounds less like a murmur and more like a beckon. You don't want to touch the tree, but something in you leans forward anyway. Your hand rises on its own. When your fingers brush the bark, the world stops. Not slows, stops. The trees stop swaying. The whisper halts. Your breath stills. The light changes, not dimming, not brightening, just changing. And in that moment of frozen silence, the tree speaks to you directly. You don't hear it in your ears. You feel it in your chest, like a memory being fed back into your body, one heartbeat at a time. It shows you something. A hallway at school, empty. A staircase you've never seen before. A face, yours, younger, maybe, or older. It's hard to tell. Emotions pour into your mind. Grief, awe, terror, longing. Not all yours. Some borrowed, some stored. The tree isn't alive in the way animals are, but it remembers. It keeps things. It collects. And now it's asking you something, not in words, in feeling. Will you leave something behind? It isn't demanding. It's offering. But something in your bones tells you this is a one-way exchange. Whatever you give, it keeps. Whatever you leave, you lose. You step back. The whisper softens. The tree seems to accept your choice. Not angry, just quieter. You feel a small pang of guilt, like disappointing a very old friend you never meant to meet. But the forest doesn't punish you this time. The glade doesn't shift. The air remains still. You take one final look at the trunk. The names shimmer faintly in the light. Yours is still there. You don't know if it will stay. You don't know if refusing to leave something means the tree took it anyway. You leave the glade without looking back. But long after you're back among the ordinary trees, with ordinary leaves and ordinary roots, you can still hear it, faint, like the echo of something buried underground, a voice not spoken, not remembered, but held, whispering your name. You step out of the glade, leaving behind the whispering tree and its impossible voice. And as you walk, your feet moving more by instinct now than intent, the forest changes again. not with a sudden shift, but with the slow, deliberate breath of something ancient and aware, the way a dream changes just before waking, subtle and incomplete, until you realize you've crossed some invisible line you didn't notice at all. The trees grow closer again, their trunks leaning just slightly inward, as if gossiping over your presence. And though your wand light still glows steadily in your hand, it seems dimmer here, not because the spell is fading, but because the air itself feels denser, murkier, like it resists the light in the same way it resists sound, muffling it, flattening it, swallowing it before it can travel too far. It's in this thick hush, deeper than silence, and more deliberate than stillness, that you first see it, a shape nestled against the curve of the earth, half swallowed by a hill and half hidden by vines and bramble. So much a part of the forest's strange skin that you almost pass it by entirely, mistaking it for another outcropping of rock or a shadowed ruin left to rot. But then the light catches on the metal hinge of a crooked door, and you realize it's not a ruin, not a stone, but a shack. Not just any shack, though there's something wrong about it, something off in a way you can't articulate but can feel in your bones, as if the forest around it leans away while still holding it in place, like a tumor growing beneath bark, or a forgotten truth buried just deep enough that only the trees remember, and even they refuse to speak of it. The door hangs slightly ajar, tilted like a question that no one has dared to answer. And though every instinct in your body tells you to turn around, to walk back into the darkness, into the maze of thorns and flowers and long-forgotten names, something else inside you, quieter but stronger, insists you step forward. And so you do, your hand on the door, pushing it gently open with a creak that doesn't echo, doesn't travel, just sinks into the room like a drop into still water. Inside, the air is warm, strangely warm, untouched by the cold breath of the forest. And though it smells of parchment and dust and the faintest trace of ash, none of it feels abandoned, only paused, waiting for something to resume, to continue. The first thing you notice is the silence, not the silence you've grown used to, thick and suffocating, but a focused kind of quiet, like the hush in a chapel or a library or a memory, a space that exists for the sole purpose of keeping secrets. And the second thing you notice is the walls, every inch of them covered not in shelves or shelves or spider webs. But in portraits, so many portraits, dozens upon dozens of them, layered across the wood like overlapping thoughts, some in frames, others painted directly onto the walls, most alive, some flickering gently, a few so old they seem to have forgotten how to move, and all of them watching, some discreetly, some openly, some with expressions you can't name, as if caught mid-thought in a dream you weren't meant to see, meant. You move slowly through the space, your wand casting shadows that slide across faces like veils being lifted and lowered again. And the silence feels heavier here than it did outside, not because there's less sound, but because there's more waiting, as if the portraits themselves are holding their breath. One painting near the far wall stops you, not because it's bigger or more ornate, but because the figure in it looks like you, almost exactly like you, but different, older, maybe, calmer, more certain, wearing robes that shimmer with a texture you don't recognize, and standing in a place that feels just slightly familiar, like a dream you half remember when you wake. You stare, and the figure stares back, and for a moment, you don't breathe. Then the image flickers. Your face vanishes. Someone else takes its place. Someone you don't know. You step back, your heel scraping across the dusty floor and across the room. Other portraits blink in response, one shifting its hands, another tilting its head, as if your movement has triggered something, some silent alarm that only they can hear. And then, from somewhere above, you hear it. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Coming from a room you hadn't noticed before. And now there it is. A staircase. Narrow and crooked. Climbing upward into a ceiling you swear wasn't there a second ago. You should leave. Every part of you knows this, but your hand reaches for the rail anyway, and you begin to climb, each step groaning beneath your weight in protest or warning, until you reach a landing and a single door, plain and shut and humming with something you don't want to name. You open it. Inside, the room is empty. Empty except for a single mirror, tall and unblemished, standing upright against the far wall, like someone placed it there and forgot to take it back. You approach slowly, drawn not by curiosity, but by inevitability, as though this moment had always been waiting for you. The mirror shows your reflection, but not as you are. You're different, happier, maybe, stronger, more complete. The image shifts. You see yourself younger, then older, then gone. And when you blink again, you see nothing. Just forest, just trees, just the same trail you've been walking all night. You take a step back. The hum recedes. The room darkens. And behind you, the door reappears. The staircase is back. The shack is quiet once more. You walk down without a word, without looking at the portraits, though you feel their gazes on your back like cold fingers brushing skin. And when you step outside, the air is colder, but cleaner, and the forest, for now, seems to accept your return. But you know, as you walk away, that something in you is still inside that mirror, still in that shack, still watching you leave. You walk for a long time after leaving the broken wand behind. Your steps quieter now, your wand light dimmed slightly, as though both you and the forest have agreed to move more gently, more carefully, as if something fragile has been disturbed, and the only proper response is silence. The path beneath your feet remains steady, a narrow ribbon of packed earth bordered by thin, tangled roots and patches of dry moss. The air is still, but no longer heavy. And though your senses remain sharp, tuned to every distant rustle, every movement just beyond the reach of your light, you realize that the forest has entered another mood entirely. It no longer feels like it's trying to trap you or test you. It feels like it's watching, not in the same way it did before, not with the overwhelming, suffocating presence of 1,000 eyes, but with something quieter, older, sadder. You notice it in the way the light changes. It grows colder, tinged faintly with silver blue. Not quite moonlight. Something else. A soft, ambient glow that doesn't come from the sky, but from the earth itself, or from the very air. You lower your wand slightly, and the light doesn't disappear. The path ahead is still visible, not clearly, but just enough. That's when you realize you're not alone. You feel them before you see them. The sensation is subtle, like walking into a room where someone is already standing in the corner, silent, still, waiting. The temperature doesn't drop. The wind doesn't rise. But something shifts, a pressure you can't place. You pause, turn slowly, and there they are. Figures in the trees, barely more than silhouettes at first. You raise your wand, casting a wider glow, and the shapes begin to sharpen. Long faces, thin wings folded like cloaks against their sides, skeletal bodies, black as smoke, outlined only in the faintest silver edge. Thestrals. They don't move. They don't blink. They don't make a sound. Just stand there, watching. 1, then 2, then 5, then more, emerging slowly from behind trees, from behind boulders, from the shadows they seem to live inside. They come with such quiet grace that it's difficult to know when they arrived. It feels as though they've been walking beside you for miles, only now choosing to show themselves. They make no effort to approach. They don't advance or threaten. They simply exist, present, still. You stand very still. There's something about Thestrals, something solemn, something sacred. You've read about them, of course, and maybe you've seen them before at the edge of the castle grounds, pulling carriages in near silence. But you've never seen them like this, in their true element. In the forest they seem to belong to in ways no other creature can. Here, they are not beasts or transportation. Here, they are witnesses. You lower your wand completely. The light fades, and yet the forest does not go dark. The pale glow that surrounds the Thestrals remains, casting enough luminance to see their hollow eyes, their transparent wings, the thin skin stretched over visible ribs. They look delicate, but not weak, worn, but not tired, as if they are made of memories you're not allowed to speak aloud. And still, they watch, not out of curiosity, not out of hunger, but because they see you, not as you are now, not just the version of yourself that stands trembling on this forest path, but the whole of you, your past, your grief, the things you've lost. They don't need to ask questions. They already know the answers. You don't know how long you stand there, surrounded by the silent herd. It could be minutes or hours or something in between. Time bends differently here. In their presence, the forest respects them. You realize, maybe even fears them. No other creatures stir. No sounds rise. Even the trees seem to hold their breath. One of them steps closer. You hold still. Its eyes lock with yours, deep and bottomless, but not empty. You expect to feel fear, or sadness, or even comfort. But what you feel instead is understanding, recognition, as though the forest itself has appointed these creatures to mark those who have seen something they can't forget, You reach out, slowly, and the thestral allows it. Your hand brushes against the side of its face. The sensation is cool and smooth, like touching stone that's been polished by centuries of wind. It exhales through its nostrils, a soft, steady breath, and then steps back, folding once more into the edge of the trees. The rest follow, one by one, fading into the dark without sound, without ceremony, returning to whatever shadows they came from. You're alone again, but changed. You continue down the path, slower now, your footsteps quieter even than before, and you can still feel the thestral's presence trailing behind you. Not like ghosts, not like watchers, but like echoes. They didn't stop you. They didn't guide you. They only saw you. And that, somehow, is enough. Your wand light flickers back to life with a soft murmur of lumos, and the forest lets you pass. The trees no longer lean toward you. The air no longer presses down. The hush remains, but it's a new kind of silence, reverent, not cold. You have passed through something rare, and whatever waits for you next, the forest knows. You walk on, your light steady, your breath calm, the memory of their eyes etched into your bones like ink that never fades. And far behind you, in the dark, the thestrals watch someone else, always silently, always knowing. You walk for a long time after leaving the broken wand behind. Your steps quieter now, your wand light dimmed slightly, as though both you and the forest have agreed to move more gently, more carefully, as if something fragile has been disturbed, and the only proper response is silence. The path beneath your feet remains steady, a narrow ribbon of packed earth bordered by thin, tangled roots and patches of dry moss. The air is still, but no longer heavy. And though your senses remain sharp, tuned to every distant rustle, every movement just beyond the reach of your light, you realize that the forest has entered another mood entirely. It no longer feels like it's trying to trap you or test you. It feels like it's watching. Not in the same way it did before. Not with the overwhelming, suffocating presence of 1,000 eyes, but with something quieter, older, sadder. You notice it in the way the light changes. It grows colder, tinged faintly with silver blue. Not quite moonlight. Something else. A soft, ambient glow that doesn't come from the sky, but from the earth itself, or from the very air. You lower your wand slightly, and the light doesn't disappear. The path ahead is still visible, not clearly, but just enough. That's when you realize you're not alone. You feel them before you see them. The sensation is subtle, like walking into a room where someone is already standing in the corner, silent, still, waiting. The temperature doesn't drop. The wind doesn't rise, but something shifts, a pressure you can't place. You pause, turn slowly, and there they are. Figures in the trees, barely more than silhouettes at first. You raise your wand, casting a wider glow, and the shapes begin to sharpen. Long faces, thin wings folded like cloaks against their sides, skeletal bodies, black as smoke, outlined only in the faintest silver edge. Thestrals. They don't move. They don't blink. They don't make a sound. Just stand there, watching. 1, then 2, then 5, then more, emerging slowly from behind trees, from behind boulders, from the shadows they seem to live inside. They come with such quiet grace that it's difficult to know when they arrived. It feels as though they've been walking beside you for miles, only now choosing to show themselves. They make no effort to approach. They don't advance or threaten. They simply exist, present, still. You stand very still. There's something about thestrals, something solemn, something sacred. You've read about them, of course, and maybe you've seen them before at the edge of the castle grounds, pulling carriages in near silence. But you've never seen them like this, in their true element. In the forest they seem to belong to in ways no other creature can. Here, they are not beasts or transportation. Here, they are witnesses. You lower your wand completely. The light fades, and yet the forest does not go dark. The pale glow that surrounds the thestrals remains, casting enough luminance to see their hollow eyes, their transparent wings, the thin skin stretched over visible ribs. They look delicate, but not weak, worn, but not tired, as if they are made of memories you're not allowed to speak aloud. And still, they watch, not out of curiosity, not out of hunger, but because they see you, not as you are now, not just the version of yourself that stands trembling on this forest path, but the whole of you, your past, your grief, the things you've lost. They don't need to ask questions. They already know the answers. You don't know how long you stand there, surrounded by the silent herd. It could be minutes or hours or something in between. Time bends differently here, in their presence. The forest respects them. You realize, maybe even fears them. No other creatures stir. No sounds rise. Even the trees seem to hold their breath. One of them steps closer. You hold still. Its eyes lock with yours. Deep and bottomless, but not empty. You expect to feel fear, or sadness, or even comfort. But what you feel instead is understanding, recognition, as though the forest itself has appointed these creatures to mark those who have seen something they can't forget. You reach out, slowly, and the thestral allows it. Your hand brushes against the side of its face. The sensation is cool and smooth, like touching stone that's been polished by centuries of wind. It exhales through its nostrils, a soft, steady breath, and then steps back, folding once more into the edge of the trees. The rest follow, one by one, fading into the dark without sound, without ceremony, returning to whatever shadows they came from. You're alone again, but changed. You continue down the path, slower now, your footsteps quieter even than before, and you can still feel the thestral's presence trailing behind you. Not like ghosts, not like watchers, but like echoes. They didn't stop you. They didn't guide you. They only saw you. And that, somehow, is enough. Your wand light flickers back to life with a soft murmur of lumos, and the forest lets you pass. The trees no longer lean toward you. The air no longer presses down. The hush remains. But it's a new kind of silence. Reverent, not cold. You have passed through something rare, and whatever waits for you next, the forest knows. You walk on, your light steady, your breath calm, the memory of their eyes etched into your bones like ink that never fades. And far behind you, in the dark, the thestrals watch someone else, always silently, always knowing. You walk away from the place where the thestrals vanished, your body moving slowly now, not because of fatigue exactly, though your limbs ache with the kind of tiredness that settles in after something spiritual has happened, but because your mind is still wrapped around the silence they left behind. A silence that didn't feel like absence, but presence. A reverent quiet that hummed against your skin and whispered in the folds of your cloak, so that even as the trail bends forward, even as the air warms slightly, and the trees shift their posture into something more open, more inviting, it feels as though you've been marked. Not in a way you can see or explain, but in a way you will never entirely forget. The forest here descends gently, not like a trapdoor or a staircase, but like an exhale, a soft slope that carries you downward without resistance, as though the ground itself has grown kind for a little while, guiding your feet toward a hollow cupped between hills and held by trees so ancient their roots grow like ribs across the earth, their bark split and ridged with time. And though the canopy still filters out most of the sky, there is a strange glow ahead, dim, blue, cool as starlight, that pulses gently from somewhere just out of sight. You come upon it not with surprise, but with inevitability, as though this place has been expecting you. And when the trees finally part, you see the pool, round and shallow and perfectly still, set into the center of the glade as if carved by something patient and ancient. Its surface so still, it reflects not only the few pale leaves that drift from above, but your breath, your presence, your hesitation. You kneel at the edge, your wand dimmed to avoid disturbing the surface, because somehow you know this is not a place for bright light or loud voices or quick movements, but a place for memory, for the quiet unfolding of things long folded away. And as you lean forward, expecting your own reflection, the pool shows you something else entirely. At first, the image is soft, like the shimmer of heat on stone, and then it sharpens, not into water, not into a mirror, but into a moment, into a younger version of yourself, sitting alone at a long table in the great hall, shoulders hunched, fingers curled around the spine of a book you weren't reading, eyes not focused on the page, but staring off into some shadow between the candles, into a silence you didn't know had followed you from the corridors and sat across from you every night. You don't look away. The image wavers, shifts, and reforms. Now you're outside, standing by the edge of the black lake, your breath misting in the cold air, your arms folded against the wind, and someone stands beside you, someone you recognize not by face, which the water keeps indistinct, but by the shape of their presence, the way your posture softens near them, the way your silence means something different in their company. The pool doesn't ripple. It breathes, or seems to. With each memory, it reveals not as a full scene, but as a feeling made visible, a ghost not of people, but of emotions. And what it shows is not what was most dramatic or loud or even important, but what was true, what was left behind inside you like stones tucked in your pocket, like letters unsent, like names you no longer speak aloud, but still whisper in dreams. You sit back slightly, not out of fear, but out of reverence, and the water adjusts with you, the images softening before shifting again, this time to a memory you thought you'd lost completely. A hallway at dusk, your own footsteps echoing in the stone, your hand brushing the edge of a tapestry as if hoping it might open into something else, somewhere else. A different path, a different ending. The pool is not enchanted in the way a pensive is, not something crafted with a spell or stirred with a wand. It is older, more primal, a memory that the forest itself keeps, or perhaps a place where the forest listens to your memories instead, not to study or exploit them, but simply to hold them, to show you that they're still there, that they haven't disappeared, even the small ones, even the painful ones. And now, for the first time, it shows your present reflection. Tired, yes, and tangled with shadow, your robes marked with earth and ash and the dust of too many strange places, but still yourself, still here, and in the reflection's eyes, there is something you hadn't seen before tonight. Recognition, not just of where you are, but of what you carry. You hover your hand over the surface, not daring to touch, and the water responds, not with ripples, but with stillness so perfect it feels like a pause in time, a held breath in the universe, as though the forest wants to give you this moment, to let you feel the weight of memory without drowning in it, to understand that nothing is ever truly lost if it is remembered, even in silence, even in pain. The pool shows one final image, a shadowed corridor lit only by your wand, your back to the viewer, walking slowly into the unknown. And then it stills completely. Your hand drops to your lap. You sit there for a while longer, letting the cool air settle over your skin, listening to the quiet around you, the kind that feels earned, the kind that follows truth. And when you rise, finally, the forest does not resist. You turn from the pool, its surface now only showing the trees again, the reflection of a single branch moving gently in the breeze. And you walk up the path that leads out of the hollow. Your steps steady, your chest heavier in a way that feels honest. Not a burden, but a weight that belongs to you, and you alone. Behind you, the pool waits, not for the next traveler, not for an audience, but simply to continue being what it is. A place where the forest remembers for you, where the water shows you what you forgot, and where your story, no matter how quiet, has always been known. You don't speak as you leave the memory pool behind. Not aloud, not in thought, not even in the quiet internal voice you've kept tethered to your steps since entering the forest. Because some part of you knows that to speak now, to make noise again so soon after that stillness, would be to disrespect whatever sacred thing just passed between you and the water, whatever ancient rite it performed, without fanfare or name. You walk like someone in a procession, quiet and slow, aware not just of your body, but of your presence, of your weight in the world, the way your footsteps press into the earth, and the way the trees seem to lean closer, listening not to your breath or your boots or your wand light, but to the fact that you're here at all. The trail grows uneven again, less sure of itself, as though the forest is testing your certainty now, placing rocks where there had been moss, raising roots just high enough to make you trip if you're careless. But your pace doesn't falter. You are no longer moving only out of fear or confusion. You're moving because the forest is offering you its story. And for some reason, it's chosen to place you in it. You descend into a low, shallow valley between the trees where fog curls along the ground like something alive and lazy, clinging to the dips and swells of the forest floor with a sleepy reluctance. Your light cuts through it, but the mist doesn't scatter. It stays low, close to your boots, thick enough that you can't see the ground clearly. And that's when you notice something strange. There are footprints. You crouch to see them better, brushing aside a curl of fog, revealing the prints in the soft dirt below. Not yours. These are larger, deeper, set farther apart, as though left by someone taller, heavier, or moving with a wider stride. The edges are sharp, recent. Whoever made them passed through not long ago. You follow them without deciding to, pulled by the simple logic of a trail. Follow the prints, find the person, or at least understand where they went. The fog shifts around your ankles, curling tighter the longer you walk, like it's clinging to your shins. The footprints press deeper into the earth the farther you go, as though the steps that made them grew heavier over time. Then something changes. You stop, blinking. The trail curves here, bends gently to the right. You follow it, taking 3 more steps, and then you see them again, The same footprints. You frown, turn slowly, checking behind you. No, the same prints, the same curve. You walk forward again. The trail bends once more. You crouch and study the ground. Your stomach knots. You've walked in a circle. You stand still for a long moment, heart thudding, not with fear exactly, but with the kind of cold recognition that blooms in your chest when you realize something isn't following the rules, and maybe never was. You retrace your steps, this time watching more carefully. You pass a fallen branch, a small patch of mushrooms glowing faintly with their own pale light. And then, again, the same prints, the same bend in the trail, the same fog coiled like a noose around the clearing. You crouch again, but this time you notice something else. There are more prints, not another set. No, it's still the same size, same depth, but now the ground holds overlapping loops, like the same path was walked again and again and again, each circuit reinforcing the one before it. Whoever left these footprints didn't just walk in a circle once. They never stopped. You rise slowly. You stare down at the path. The fog thickens around your feet. A thought occurs to you. Sudden and unwelcome. What if these aren't footprints from someone who escaped the circle? What if they never left it? What if they're still walking? You look up quickly, scanning the mist. Nothing moves, but the quiet now feels wrong. You step back, just one pace, and the fog clings tighter. You spin, trying to find a break in the circle, a path leading out. But the prints continue, always ahead of you, always curving, looping, dragging you deeper into the same invisible trap. You press a hand to your chest, steadying your breath. Then, you close your eyes. You stop looking at the footprints. You stop watching the ground. You stop trying to follow. Instead, you turn in place, facing the direction you came from, or think you came from, and take one firm step into the mist. Nothing stops you. You take another, and another. The fog grows thinner. The trail behind you does not bend. You walk straight for a minute, then two, and finally risk a glance over your shoulder. The circle has vanished. The prints gone. The fog clears, and ahead of you, the trees open again. You step into a small glade, one ringed by thin branches and bathed in pale light that has no obvious source. The air feels lighter here, less enchanted, more real. But at the edge of the glade, just before the next patch of forest begins, you see something carved into the bark of a tree. A spiral, deliberate, deep, old. You run your fingers along the grooves, and though the bark is dry, something about it hums faintly beneath your palm, like a warning or a memory. You step away. You don't follow the spiral. You keep walking. And this time, the path doesn't bend. You move beyond the glade, past the spiral carved deep into the tree's bark. Not because you understand it, not because you know what it means, but because something in you, something half instinct, half memory, refuses to let you linger in that place too long, refuses to allow the circle to pull you back into its quiet confusion. The path here is narrower, overgrown in places with thorned vines and low ferns, but it no longer twists without purpose. It winds now with the certainty of something ancient, like a river cutting its course through the earth, like footsteps placed before you by something that already knows where you're going. You walk slower, not with fear, but with a sense of something approaching, not behind, not in the shadows, but ahead. There is a pressure in the air again, subtle but undeniable, as though the forest itself has shifted its attention toward a singular point, as if all the quiet eyes and whispered branches have turned to face one direction, and you're walking straight into it. The path opens. It happens gradually. First, a widening of the trees, then a flattening of the earth, and finally, the sudden absence of branches above. You find yourself standing in another clearing, but unlike the others, unlike the pool of memories, or the shack, or the ring of black flowers, this one feels watched in a different way. It isn't sinister. It isn't hiding. It's expectant. And there, standing on the far side of the clearing, beneath the twisted arch of a yew tree, is a figure, not human, not entirely. Tall, broad-shouldered, muscular, but still half shadow, half moonlight, with the unmistakable form of a centaur. Horse's body below, a man's torso above. His arms are bare, adorned with painted runes you don't recognize, and in one hand, he carries no weapon, no bow, just a long staff carved from what looks like polished ash, etched with lines that glimmer faintly like starlight. You stop at the edge of the clearing. So does he. You don't speak, not because you're afraid, but because you understand instinctively that this is not a creature to greet like a friend or a stranger. This is a moment meant to be waited for, not summoned. He raises his head, eyes glinting beneath the fringe of dark hair. His expression is not cold, not warm, simply knowing. The kind of knowing that exists outside time. The kind of knowing that cannot be taught. He speaks first, not loudly, not formally. His voice is deep, slow, as though each word is chosen not for meaning, but for weight. You walk through a forest that remembers. You nod, though you're not sure if that's agreement or just acknowledgement. He steps forward, once, hooves silent on the moss, staff tapping softly as he walks. And though there is no aggression in his body, you feel the tension in the air to ripple, as if the forest itself is listening to him now. Not all who enter are meant to return, he says, and not all who return are meant to remember. You feel those words settle somewhere low in your chest. He turns his gaze toward the trees, toward the stars above that barely flicker through the gaps in the canopy. And when he speaks again, it sounds more like he's reciting than conversing, as though delivering a truth spoken long before you ever arrived. There are two paths from here, one that forgets, one that remembers. You do not choose them with your feet. You want to ask what that means. You want to ask where each path leads, but the words won't form, not because you're frightened, but because this isn't a place for questions. He steps a little closer now, and you notice the fine silver lines on his skin, like constellations tattooed in delicate curves across his shoulders and down his arms. The stars do not lie, he murmurs, but they do not always answer. You meet his gaze. He tilts his head slightly, as though considering something. And for a moment, you wonder if he can see your memories, if he saw the reflection in the pool, if he knows about the broken wand, the whispering tree, the spiral you almost didn't escape. Then, he says, you carry more than you should. And somehow, you know he doesn't mean your wand or your fear. He's speaking of what you've gathered here, the pieces of the forest that have embedded themselves inside you. The faces, the silences, the not quite voices that filled the spaces between everything. The grief that still hums under your ribs. The wonder that has nowhere to go. He lifts his staff, plants it gently in the soil between you. When you leave, he says, you will not be the same. But if you leave wrongly, you will not know what you lost. The staff glows faintly. He does not touch you. He does not bless you. He simply stands there, like a sentinel placed by time, like a figure from a dream too old to be remembered. And he says, almost as if to himself, some return to the castle, some return to the forest, but all return changed. You don't know how long you stand in silence after that. Eventually, he turns, not abruptly, but with the calmness of someone who's said all that can be said, and walks back into the trees, disappearing not into shadow, but into starlight. The forest swallows him without sound. You're alone again, but it no longer feels like solitude. You glance down. The staff is gone, but something small remains where he stood. A stone, flat, round, marked with a spiral. The same symbol you saw carved into the tree. You pick it up, hold it in your hand, feel its cool weight pressing into your skin like a reminder. No path here is linear. No direction is simple. And not all choices are made with your feet. You slip the stone into your pocket and step forward into the trees again. The forest parts for you, not entirely, but just enough. You are being guided now, not led, not watched, but trusted. You walk away from the centaur's clearing with the stone still warm in your pocket. Its weight small, but unmistakable, as though it's not just a reminder of his words, but something older, deeper, pressed into your palm by the forest itself. And as the trees close gently around you again, shifting with the slow, deliberate movements of something that breathes more in memory than in time, you feel the silence return. Not the sharp, suffocating silence from earlier in your journey, but a broader, more expansive kind. A silence that listens, that considers, that carries your footsteps forward through a space that feels like the end of a thought. The path becomes softer underfoot, less solid, the moss thickening again, the soil damp, and the air around you cools, not suddenly, but steadily, as though the forest has drawn back its warmth and replaced it with something thinner, more transparent. And soon you notice that the light has changed too, not darkened exactly, but dulled, muted, like it's been filtered through layers of silk or smoke. And then you see it begin, the mist curling between the roots like lazy fingers, creeping slowly at first, licking at your ankles, then rising with quiet determination. Fog. Not a veil, not a storm. Something conscious. It gathers around your knees and elbows, weaving through the trunks with a rhythm that feels too slow to be natural, too precise to be random. And you try to keep your light steady, your wand lifted high, but the beam seems to narrow, drawn in by the fog's hungry calm, as though the mist is not swallowing the light, but studying it, bending it, playing with it, like a memory just out of reach. And that's when it starts. The voices, not sudden, not sharp, but there, embedded in the fog, the way breath gets trapped in cold glass. Voices so faint, at first you mistake them for wind, for trees, for your own mind echoing back what it cannot let go of. But then one calls your name, not loudly, not urgently, just knowingly, as if testing the sound of it aloud for the first time in years. You stop, not from fear, at least, not the fear you once knew, but from a deep, instinctive stillness, the kind that rises when something sacred is unfolding, and you are not sure if you are intruding or being welcomed. And the fog, sensing your pause, draws tighter, higher, until it wraps around your shoulders and your chest like an old cloak, familiar and heavy and stitched with words you've never said, but always carried. Another voice now, softer than the last, uncertain. We were waiting. You don't know who "we" is. You don't ask. You step forward, and the fog deepens. The trees vanish into silhouettes, and the ground beneath you becomes more suggestion than path. A third voice, clear and calm, whispers near your left ear. Would you come back if given the choice? And you almost answer, almost let the word rise from your throat. But you stop, because the question doesn't need an answer. Not here, not now, not yet. And somehow, the forest already knows the shape of your response. The fog shifts. It breathes around you. You keep walking, slowly, carefully. And though you can't see far ahead, you no longer feel lost, only surrounded. The voices grow more frequent, rising and falling like waves against your ears, some laughing, some weeping, some murmuring stories with no beginning, no end, no speaker, just fragments of memory turned sound. And somewhere within it all, you hear your own voice, not as you are now, but younger, more fragile, asking a question you don't remember asking the first time. Why did you leave me here? the fog offers no answer. It never does. Instead, it drapes that silence around your shoulders, and you realize the voices are not trying to confuse you. They're trying to remind you, not of events, but of emotion, of choices, of versions of yourself that never quite vanished. And still, you walk. You don't know how long. There is no time here. Only distance, only fog, only sound. Until suddenly, the voices fade. Not abruptly, but gradually, like a song coming to its final note, and you feel the mist around you begin to loosen, lifting like a curtain drawn back after a long performance. And ahead of you, barely visible at first, you see space, an opening, a clearing surrounded by thin white trees whose bark shines faintly in the dimness. You step into it. There is no monument here, no pool, no altar, no spiral, just earth and air and the slow quiet of something that has waited too long to need ceremony. You stop in the center. The fog presses close behind you, but does not enter. You turn slowly, and in that moment, you understand. This is the last threshold, the last hush before the forest decides whether to release you. You whisper something, not a spell, not a plea, just your name, just the truth. The fog responds, not with words this time, but with breath. One final, slow exhale, and then it begins to recede. Back into the trees, back into the memories, back into itself. And you remain, standing in the clearing, heart still, lungs full, eyes open. When you finally walk forward, the path is there, solid, unmistakable. It leads away. And this time, it does not loop. You follow it without hesitation. Behind you, the fog gathers again, but softer now, quieter, carrying your footprints with it like a story already told. You move forward through the thinning trees, your body lighter now, not in the sense of relief exactly, but in the way a story feels lighter when the final chapter has begun. Not because the weight is gone, but because you've learned how to carry it. And as the path opens slowly in front of you, as the roots become fewer and the moss gives way to packed earth and dry leaves that whisper beneath your boots with every step, you feel the forest begin to loosen its grip. Not like a sudden release or a slammed door behind you, but like a quiet hand sliding away from your shoulder. Like something that has held you for hours, maybe longer. Letting go, not because it must, but because it chooses to. The trees grow wider apart with each step, their shadows no longer stretching like fingers to tug at your sleeves or whisper warnings in your ears. And you walk through this soft unraveling of wildness with a kind of reverence, aware now of how much you've passed through, how much has passed through you. The echo of every path and pool and spiral and whisper now folded into your breath, your bones, the rhythm of your footsteps that are somehow yours again. Not entirely, not as they were before, but returned in a new shape, like a voice remembered after long silence. And then, without fanfare, without even the faint rustle of branches or a shift in the wind, you see it, not an opening you had been searching for, not an exit marked by signs or light or symbols, but a space between trees that should not be there, a soft curve in the forest wall where the shadows grow thinner and the air smells less like moss and more like morning. And though you don't remember seeing this place before, though you are certain it was never there in the hours, or was it days, you've wandered. You know in your chest, in the center of everything, that this is it, the exit. You don't run. You don't reach for it. You simply stand for a moment, allowing yourself to feel the weight of it, the final boundary, the shift from within to beyond. And when you glance back, when you turn your head just enough to see the stretch of forest behind you, there's no longer a trail, no longer a pool or a shack or a clearing filled with eyes or voices or stars. Only trees now, quiet and tall and unmoving, and so thin it seems to weep away into the roots, leaving nothing behind except the memory of what it was and what it gave you. You face forward again. The gap is still there, the exit that wasn't there before, and you begin to walk toward it. The forest doesn't resist. The wind doesn't change. There is no final test, no last riddle, only steps, only breath, only the sound of the earth beneath your feet, steady and sure, and the hum that still lingers faintly in your chest like a melody you've almost forgotten how to sing. You step out, not into light, exactly, but into openness, into a clearing so wide it feels like sky even before you look up, into air that stretches and bends and expands across your shoulders like the cloak you left behind somewhere far within. And though you don't yet see the castle or the lake or the familiar towers rising from the horizon. You feel them, distant but real, like the memory of home before the door is opened. Behind you, the trees are still. You don't turn, not all the way. You just pause at the threshold, your hands relaxed, your wand quiet, and you reach into your pocket where the spiral stone still rests, warmer than ever now, its surface smooth from the journey, from your fingers brushing it again and again in moments of fear or wonder or decision, and you pull it out, not to use it, not to cast anything or mark anything or leave anything behind, but just to look at it once more, to hold in your palm the proof that this all happened. And maybe that's all the forest ever wanted, to be remembered. You close your fingers around the stone, and the clearing widens as the sky begins to change, a faint gold touching the edge of the clouds above. And with that, the birds begin to sing, soft, uncertain notes at first, as though testing the air after long silence, and then more of them, gathering in branches, in fields, somewhere unseen but known. The music of morning rising to meet you as you walk through the tall grass. You feel the castle in the distance. You feel the world waiting. And still, in your chest, the rhythm of the forest beats quietly, the spiral still turning, the path still unwinding in some part of you that understands now that not all journeys are meant to be left behind, that some places walk with you even after you leave them, that some exits are only beginnings in disguise. The sun crests the trees, the last of the fog disappears, and you keep walking, your shadow growing long behind you, the stone still warm in your hand,